Um, so yeah, when we were just coming online here, I've been thinking a lot lately about how our relationship changes with music over time, the way we hear the music we love, and also the way we approach making our own music. And just for some quick context, my relationship with your playing and music came from growing up in North County, San Diego. And so just hearing you around playing live at places like Kai's and the Panikin and
Hmm.
wherever else. And this, for me, this would have been the early to mid 90s is when I was
Okay.
really out and about, I guess. That's essentially just when I was in high school, basically. And so yeah, coming across your groups, and then I think the first thing I heard of yours that was recorded, a friend got had your Dance of the Universe record, and he played me Avenues.
Yeah,
And so if I'm right, that's like 1979.
that's right.
And I'll be putting a link to that really comprehensive page on your site of your recordings. And then
Okay.
you've kind of got you've basically got liner notes for all the
Yeah.
records, which I love. But maybe
Yeah.
we can start there. Talk to us a bit about putting that record together and give me a picture into what your days were like during that time and where your head was at when you made that record. Because that was maybe your first record for a label.
Yes, it was.
Okay.
So the very first record I did was one that I funded, and it's called Dance of the Universe. You Make Me Want to Sing. Dance of the Universe was the name of our band, and that record was called You Make Me Want to Sing. And then what happened after that? That kind of created some noise around San Diego, but it was only released in San Diego. And then what happened shortly after that? The great jazz saxophonist Charles McPherson moved to San Diego, lived in La Jolla, and we connected with him and did a lot of playing. And then he invited me to record on a record that he was doing for Xanadu Records. That's a New York label. And so I went up to LA and we recorded in LA. And then the record mogul, the record producer guy that owned the label, his name was Don Schlitten. He
Hmm.
liked what I did and he said, I want you to have a record contract. So he gave me a four record deal. Um, and it's interesting because back in the day, and that was probably a pretty small deal, but it was still better than any deal that you get today,
Sure.
which is
I can
funny because
imagine.
they pay they pay for all the costs, a couple $1,000 of in advance just for me, pay all the musicians. They do all the cover, all the CD design, they put or record design. It was just vinyl at that point. They put the record out. They then do all the have a promotional team. It was just so good, and it
They
was
do all the stuff that now all the artists have to do themselves.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it's the least fun part of it.
It
I mean,
is. It is.
creating is the fun part. So yeah, so that first record that I did was called Dance of the Universe, and I got Bob Magnuson. So these are some guys from San Diego that have were kind of world renowned, but lived in San Diego. So Bob Magnuson on bass, a wonderful jazz pianist named Mike Wofford,
Yeah.
then Jim Plank on drums, and I think that's it. I think that first record it was just a quartet,
Hmm.
and yeah. So in preparing for that record, always practiced a lot, but was working on just those tunes, and then actually went and did demos of the tunes just to give the record guy a choice, because he wanted me, which was neat. He wanted me to do mostly originals, and in fact, I
Yeah.
don't know if I did any standards on that first record, just all originals. And
Hmm.
so,
How did you demo it out? At just a small
oh,
spot in
well,
San Diego or something?
there was just a a friend of mine, John Slavicek had a small studio, and I went in there with a quartet, not the guys, not Magnuson and those guys, but other guys that I played with, and just demoed the tunes
Yeah.
just to see what was working, and also to let the record company guy hear.
get a sense of stuff. That's uncommon to demo out a jazz date a little bit, but that's cool
Yeah,
that
but
they wanted a sense of things a little bit.
yeah, that and also if you listen to that record, I mean, there were tunes that had more arrangement than a regular jazz standard or
Then a
something.
date. Yeah, yeah.
They had intros and
Yep.
not really interludes, I don't remember, but even like that song Avenues you mentioned, that's a hard song, and so it was kind of good to see what we were up to be able to do
Up
it.
to yeah, Mike's solo on
Oh,
on that track is amazing.
just amazing.
Yeah, I remember hearing this stuff for the first time, and at that time I was just getting into jazz. And there's something that's always struck me about a lot of your writing and playing, which is like really kind of like effervescent. Like there's
Mm,
this like flow of ideas that keeps kind of building in these beautiful ways, and it often reminds me of I don't know. So, I mean, it's like a great comparison, but like it reminds me of how I feel when I listen to some of Bach's compositions, where there's kind
mm,
of this inevitability to a lot of
hmm
the writing and soloing.
hmm
And that was the first tune I heard of yours, and it seems like one of that's one of your first records.
hmm
And at that time, I didn't really know what was going on with that style of music, even
Yeah,
honestly.
yeah.
But I think back, and it was kind of a gateway song for me to getting deeper into jazz. And then it always just tripped me out that you were like living in the same zip code, basically.
I know.
And we were like skater kids, just like sitting at your show, you know?
Dude, I find that is such a neat discovery for me too, to get to know you and hear your playing, and then to learn that you were back in that same whole scene that we had going on. That's just
That's right.
just love that.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk about some of those other folks we know. Cool. So I'm gonna jump around in history a little bit, and I want to talk about the title track to Width of the World, which is
Hmm
a thing you just put out, which I know you've been interviewed about it a little bit about the big backstory, but maybe give us a thumbnail
Yeah,
on that record, and then maybe specifically on the title track itself,
yeah.
what your compositional process was like for that tune.
Right. Okay. So the kind of quick backstory is that I about 20 years ago got a grant or a commission is what they're called, to write a piece for two guitars and jazz rhythm section and orchestra with the San Diego Symphony. So I took a couple months to write the piece, and it was in three movements. Um, did very little rehearsal, which was something that was an eye opener to me, because typically with my own band, we rehearse a fair amount to get these things that are tricky under our fingers, and with orchestra, the reality that exists there is it's expensive to rehearse, and so
Right, right.
and they're great readers and they're great musicians, but still not enough rehearsal. We did the performance, didn't get a very good recording. Um, so I had it in my mind at some point to recreate it, to record it in some fashion, rather than have it sit on the shelf. So it really, 20 years went by, and I had it wasn't COVID, but it was just I had just a good chunk of time in my schedule to that freed me up to take this on. And so I got into it. At first, I did a lot of forensic work, call it, because I had some demo files that were good. Also, I had something else that was interesting is I recorded it in Pro Tools, but such an early version that I could not even open it up to get some of the demo files.
Mm.
Um, so I found this place in LA. I just love the idea. I haven't seen it, but they're really neat guys, and they have all these old computers, old programs. And if you have Pro Tools file, you can open it in one of the older computers, older OS, older version of
Yeah,
Pro Tools,
right.
and just kind of carry it through to the new. So I did some of that, got some some of the files that I needed, and then went about the process of doing a rendering, a recording of this orchestra, but with mostly sample libraries, but with also real people. I
So
did,
like a
yeah,
hybrid
like a
type of thing.
hybrid. And it was really neat work to do. It's something that I mean, I've worked with synthesizers for a long time, but this whole thing of working with a sample library where you use key switches, I'm not sure if you know about that, but
Mm.
these are things where you can change the articulation and midstream, and it's super time consuming. It's just like unbelievable. And and with an orchestra too, if there's so many parts. So I spent probably a month and a half, 2 months putting that together. And so I finally put it out and it's out now. And I'm so happy that I did it because I think it came out pretty good. And
It sounds great. It sounds great. And I think you nailed that feeling with those tools. I think there's like a liveliness to it and
hmm
kind of an organic quality, and like it feels like humans are playing it, even if not it's not all, exactly
yeah.
humans
And,
in a
and,
room, but I think you
and
nailed
Josh,
that.
it's,
Yeah.
it's just the trip. The sample libraries are such like, for instance, a French horn sample. You have it played and then you work with the mod wheel as changing the expression
Right.
on the samples, and so yes, it gets louder, but it also changes timbre as it gets louder,
Yeah.
which a good library will do that, so that's where you get this sort of pastel see, warm quality, uh,
Yeah.
and it has expression. So anyway, that's the process that I did, and I'm really happy. I don't know if I ever want to do it to that extent again because it's sort of gets to be where it's not that musical. It's a little bit like
Mm.
when you come up with a new song and you write a chart. Well, writing the chart part, writing the song is fun and creative. Writing the chart, especially if it's got a lot of parts, is so time consuming, and it's just sort of a necessary evil. And
Mm.
and the whole thing of working with the sample libraries, at least at the state that they're at now, maybe someone will invent um, an easier way to do it. But it's still really a lot of nuts and bolts, kind of not super creative work. Um,
Yeah. What about the tune itself,
yes,
the title track of the
yeah,
tune? Because yeah, I think the first time we did a session, we were chatting about some music we liked in bands, and you brought up Oregon as kind of
yeah.
a North Star, or one of your North Stars a little bit, and that this song, goes to that territory in such a great way. But yeah, talk about the composition.
Yeah, so the piece, so it's a little bit of a daunting thing. You're saying, okay, I'm going to write a 20-minute orchestral piece, and how do I get started?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so what I do when I do songs, I don't do this as much, but when I do bigger pieces, because I've done a fair amount of string quartet, jazz rhythm section compositions that are really involved and are big, compositions where there's improvising, but there's a fair amount of or orchestrating and written part. So what I do on is I make a map, and it's sort of a broad strokes. So I say I want to, so like for the map for the width of the world, the first movement, the first piece, um, the map might have looked like string, just a string intro, gentle, um, and follow it through with adding and build and keep modulating, and then eventually going into like a Matheny. Like one of my favorite qualities of some of Matheny's writing are these things where he, as the guitarist, is just strumming like a madman,
Yeah.
and that texture, that strumming steel string kind of folk style guitar, and
Mm.
then have this other stuff around it. And so I had the idea of that. So I forget if I wrote the whole huge intro before it got into this actual tune. I might have written the tune first, but it's basically a song that has that at its core is that strumming guitar thing, and it's kind of Celtic in nature
Yeah.
in terms of the tonality. It's like major triad chords rather than major sevens, and
Yeah.
so that's sort of how I went about it. I mean, literally just when I did the orchestra part, I just started noodling around and modulating and trying to come up with melodies and it
Do you remember kind of speaking of that triad thing versus jazz extension type stuff? When you came to got a taste for jazz, as a younger kid was that basically in the 70s? Am I getting that right?
yeah,
Like generally in the 70s? Like that's
yes,
right when this sort of American, like at the core of it for me, it's like Matheny and Keith Jarrett. I think
yeah,
we're doing these things where like essentially saying triads are okay. You know what I mean?
yes, yes,
And then also like American folk
yes.
rhythms and harmonies. Was that stuff, do you remember a discrepancy in your mind where like you're finding kind of blue and giant steps, but also that, did it all feel of a piece to you, or did it feel a little bit?
That's a really good question because it didn't when I started I think the way that jazz came to me is my father was a jazz drummer and really loved Miles Davis and
Okay.
loved that music. So when I first started playing jazz, and Metheny would have been, he's a year older than I, but he would have been putting out some of his first stuff. Um, I didn't really latch into that stuff like I latched into Charlie Parker and Coltrane and
Got it.
Coy Tyner and um, those kind of guys. Those were my
Yeah.
main guys.
Yeah.
I didn't really take note that there's an existing sort of river of harmony that Metheny, Keith Jarrett, where they're playing triads rather than major seven chords.
Yeah.
They're embracing just sort of Americana with
Yeah.
jazz, and I do think Metheny was maybe one of the big proponents of that in the
Yeah.
beginning.
Hmm.
Even more, well, Keith Jarrett, yeah, like those solo records where he's playing like gospel
Right.
grooves. That was, I guess, a little bit later than Metheny's first introduction, but
And I guess that Gary Burton stuff too, right? Like
that's
that
right.
sort of early quartet that he was a huge fan of and then was also eventually part of. I think Gary Burton, those records have always been interesting to me. They always feel a little out of reach for me. I'm not sure why. I think the tunes are still pretty, they're wild sort of, but there is a funk, like he has a wild record called, what's it called? Country,
Yeah.
that Firebird one, you know what I'm talking
Hmm.
about? That Barry
Hmm.
Burton one. And that's like just a country, it's like a jazz guy goes to Nashville, basically.
And it's so funny that Gary Burton would have. I wonder if Metheny, introduced him to that vibe, but it's so funny that Gary went that way because for so many jazz musicians, that was just such a corny way to go, you know?
Yeah, it was kind of I think off limits,
Yeah.
this sort of s- strange thing. But I think your synthesis of this stuff is so cool because I can hear the deep love of classic jazz from Miles on and onward and all of that,
Yeah.
but it's been integrated in a great way with this other side, whether it's Americana or like the Brazilian thing, definitely.
Hmm. I just want to say
Yeah.
one thing,
Yeah.
and because I really admire that about your writing. I think you have a very fresh style that incorporates both of those worlds. Because
Mm.
when we're talking about playing triadic kind of stuff, I mean, even in Metheny's in his sphere, a well-placed major seven chord is heavy. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
And you
Right.
do that too. You have these
Well, that's cool.
beautiful chord progressions that are triadic, but then it has this other color chord that just works. So anyway, I just wanted
Thank you.
to
That's
let you
nice.
know that I really appreciate your writing too.
Thank you. Yeah, I've been thinking lately that it's like context is everything, right? Because in a way, I, I remember like I essentially look back and I almost like I was playing a little bit of jazz guitar, right? But I was sort of on this path, but I kind of left. I was some of it felt just too tough for my brain, but I also can sometimes look at it as a lot of it started to feel like an obstacle course.
Uh-huh.
But sometimes I started, it's on reflection. I don't think I could articulate this when I was younger, but I've felt sometimes if a tune is chock full of a million colorful, heavy chords, they begin to lose their meaning.
They do.
And then it's a little bit like, why am I running this obstacle course? I want to see if I can live through it. And
I
it's like
know.
you either do or you don't. But then at the end, it's like, what have we done? What have we done? You know, like
No, I am so with you,
what are we doing here?
like
Yeah.
I feel the same way. You have to be really careful
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
yes, with your knowledge of all the different possible chords that exist, you need to be careful to create a vibe of the song, to limit yourself to some chords.
Yeah.
Don't go to that place because that just dilutes the feeling that you were creating. And um
Yeah. I,
yeah. And I do think too, like out of all of the bebop and lots of chord changes and this and that, if you use it as a touchstone like John Coltrane, I mean,
mm,
his music was so deep, and it had, well, the early stuff was bebop, but some of the later modal stuff was just amazing, that had lots of air in it, and it wasn't chock full of just survival plowing through chord changes and stuff.
yeah.
Yeah, and so it still sounds, that music, while
Oh, yeah.
some frantic bebop chain, where it's just chord changes forever. I mean, the great guys can make it sound like music.
That's that's right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, there's a time and place for it all. On that tip, I know you've done a ton of transcription and your book has been really well received and you've kind of got a great comprehensive list of people you listen to and favorite records and all this stuff. But maybe tell me about like maybe your heaviest transcription days. What was your typical, like, were you slowing down tapes? Were you in that world? Like, what was the pinnacle of your
Yeah.
transcription day looking like?
Yeah. So I do remember that the most intense time of that was when I had just gotten out of high school and I was living in my with my parents in Del Mar, and I had this actual, like, not a garage, but a kind of a shed that
Cool.
was mine that I got to practice in. And I had an old, at first, I tried to do some transcribing with an actual record where you can slow it down, but then you're picking it up and dropping the needle. And then I got an old reel-to-reel tape recorder that you could manually hand rewind it where you want it, you'd listen to the part and you'd rewind it by hand. So it was very streamlined.
Hmm.
And yeah, and I just transcribed a ton. And I never in the beginning had this idea that I was going to make these books out of it, because
Yeah.
I was just doing it to learn. And yeah, I spent hours doing it and then writing them out.
Hmm.
Um, and Josh, the thing that I discovered through transcribing was the main reason to do it was that it unveiled some concepts that I would imagine that the person that I was transcribing, they had this idea, this sort of these sort of little secret tricks like alternate changes, and or what scale fits what chord change. So basically what I would do is learn a part, and I'd say, okay, well, this was on E minor to A7, and it
Right.
just sounds like he's playing B flat minor 7 to E flat 7. What's that about? Why does that work? Why does that sound cool?
Hmm.
So you get what I gathered from, and whether or not the person playing it was thinking that, it's just a way that I could kind of grasp it and hold on to an idea of it, is that I came away with all these like things like, Oh, one of the things, it's a 2-5-1 D minor G7 C. Well, they play a lick in D minor. They play the same lick over the G7, but up a minor third. So it's like an F minor, and then they resolve it. So why does that work? It sounds cool. They
Hmm.
set up this motif, answer it a minor third up, and resolve it. So like that,
Yeah,
you
it's
you
like a
you
tool.
it's a
Yeah.
tool. You'd say, okay, I could play the exact same lick and I've learned that lick and that sounds cool, but there's 10 million other licks that I could play that is
Yeah.
using that same, I call it concept.
Yeah.
So that's what my transcribing was. And then further down the path, I just realized, I have a lot of Charlie Parker ones, and another thing too is the the exact level of exactness that you can get with a transcript or transcribing a solo. It's really important because if you are not hearing it right and you get wrong notes, it's conveying a different idea.
Yeah.
It's not following through with these clear, and it's hard to get it exact. Like that was the thing too with real. Nowadays, you slow it down, it's still at the same pitch, but it was an octave lower then. And it's just hard to hear. But um
You know who has a wild site? Have you gone to Steve Kahn's site before
I have, and
and seen his like this
because
catalog of transcriptions and stuff?
he did a bunch of Wes, right?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think, and a ton of Pat Martino and
Hmm.
uh, but yeah, like all handwritten scans up there, and it's cool.
It's
It's cool.
insane.
Yeah,
Yeah, so anyway, it was a really neat thing for me to do because not only was I gathering this new data of how to improvise on chord changes, but also um, learning about time. For instance,
yeah.
when you hear Sonny Rollins slowed down, it's just a beautiful way that he manipulates time. It's just
Mm.
subtle, but
Pulls it and
he pulls it.
pushes
He plays
it.
straight eighth notes for part of the phrase.
Yeah, right.
He adds humor to it by doing
Yeah,
certain things. Um, so that, and then also just the ear training
yeah.
of spending all those times trying to find out what are those notes.
Mm.
So yeah, so then I put out. I realized I had about 5 books. One was Chick Corea, one was Assorted, one was Charlie Parker, one was McCoy Tyner, and did I mention Chick Corea? I did one of him. And so
Yeah,
they that was neat to put those out. They don't generate huge money, but it's just a kind of a fun thing. And then I did my own book of sort of my guitar ideas that were important to me in learning how to play. I kind of put all those ideas into a book, and that's actually done pretty well. That sells well, and also that led to this online video courses
yeah.
that I've done.
Which basically, and it seems like that online stuff, is that through what's it?
Open Studio.
And that's basically the book in video form.
It's exactly right. And it's
Yeah.
kind of a little bit more refined because it was then, maybe 10 years after I originally wrote the first book. So it's that. And it's a lot of times this is funny. Well, I don't know if it's funny, but it's part of the book is the first part is to get all these basic skills together and these arpeggios and I think arpeggios are really important to know them in all the different positions and the different keys, and they're important to in articulating an improvised solo and they're also interesting because the lines are more vertical with arpeggios.
Mm.
So anyway, I go through this basic sort of boot camp chunk of stuff, and people have always said they love the part, and they say, and I'll see you in about 3 years,
Yeah.
pal. Like,
Yeah. It's like if
like
you really want to add like put this to practice, I will see you in 3 years.
I
Yeah.
know, and
That's
and
funny.
to me
That's true.
that became apparent when I was learning to play. I felt like I have a lot of holes in my knowledge. I kind of understand it theoretically, but to execute is a different thing. That's
Did you feel the fire of that when, because I know you grew up in San Diego and then didn't you go to Interlochen and then some Berkeley as well? Did
Yeah.
you did you have the feeling like you were at a level in San Diego transcribing, working and stuff, but when you went out to the wider world, and then I would imagine there were other students at these places that were just as, did you have that moment where you're like, I got, wherever you were at,
You know,
you,
you really caught it because what it was is that experience at Interlochen was my last year of high school. So
oh,
I
okay.
I went to San Diego High School,
Yeah.
and then but I was really into music and I heard about the school, so I went there, and that was an eye opener because it was just exactly what you said. I was doing pretty well in San Diego as this young little guy playing. I went there and I was surrounded by mm, a couple of great jazz players, but that school was leaning a little bit more towards classical.
So just
So,
great readers,
oh,
great
just,
technique, great.
just
Yeah.
phenomenal musicians.
Yeah.
And also interesting enough, some really phenomenal musicians goofing around a lot and kind of getting into drugs. Uh,
Yeah.
and I just thought, boy, I have got to really dig into this because if this is the level of musicians that exist in the world to be able to survive, I mean, this is just how I
Yeah.
saw it.
Yeah.
I just felt like I had to really work hard. So I really worked hard and kind of went through those 3 years of just playing scales and arpeggios just to get fluent on it. I kind of feel differently now about when I've taught before. I kind of feel like with students, I don't press that as hard as I used to. To
Hmm.
me, it seems so apparent that this is what you had to do, but I realize as time marched on, there are folks that don't know the,
Right.
every arpeggio in every position, but they just make great music,
That's
and
right.
that's the important part. So if
That
I were to redo the book, I
interesting.
might take that out.
That's an interesting point, and I do think things have changed in that way where maybe it's something about like we've talked about music education or this idea that we all it's almost hard to remember that some of these incredible landmark musicians and recordings like we've talked about Sonny Rollins records and whatever like they didn't go to jazz school, they didn't have a teacher say like play the arpeggios through all of these tunes like memorize 100 standards or like they were like playing music
I know,
on the
in a kind of an
bandstand.
organic way.
That's
Yeah.
right. And so I think what you're alluding to is there there has to be room for to remember that like some kid coming up who gets really into guitar right now who's 16 who watches YouTube and just comes up with some crazy stuff and maybe can't tell you what they're doing. That's
But
probably for the best. It's fine, like
I really agree. I mean,
but it
like,
only depends. I mean, part of me is like it only feels really important if that person wants to like maybe go play for Lincoln Center or something and like read a
yeah,
big band chart. And if that's their goal, yeah, whatever.
yeah,
But that's
yeah.
pretty
I
rare.
I do. And for
Yeah.
me, it wasn't anything driven by my own desire to be as fluent with blowing on changes as Charlie Parker or Sonny Rollins, and those were just my idols. So I wanted to, I saw the freedom that they had, and
Right.
the way you have that freedom is you just have all these holes in your knowledge filled in
Yeah.
with solutions, and
That's right.
but I do know that a lot of up and coming musicians, they don't want to it's not important for them to play Cherokee and
Yeah.
I've got
Right.
rhythm. It's just not on their radar. So if that's the case, I'd say more power more
Mm,
power to you. Just learn the things, do your own path. And I find that
mm.
that is just as valid as anything else
Yeah.
because like Matheny, I mean, he's such a he 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 has some of that bebop sort of vocabulary, but but far more of his own vocabulary.
There you go.
If that makes sense.
That's a good way to put
Like
it.
when I played on chord changes, I know a lot of what Charlie Parker and Coltrane, and I mean I know that language pretty
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
And with Matheny, I don't hear I hear some of those lines, but not to the extent. But I hear his lines
Yeah.
I like, and
Yeah.
so
That seems like a North Star too, just like or a goal. Everyone's got a different goal with music, but I love the idea of somebody being like, that sounds like you. It's like, well,
mhm.
that's great.
It's a good thing. Yeah.
Yeah. I wanted to ask about a tune, kind of going through some other tunes and time periods of your career. There's a record you did called Calling Me Back Home,
Hmm.
which I feel like is 2010, if I'm right.
That sounds right. Yeah.
And there's a track on there called Kantar,
Yeah.
and you wrote that you were thinking of this guy, Ron Satterfield, for this like outro
Yes.
post chorus, post solo thing. And
Yeah.
a quick thought on him was when I was in high school and seeing you around, I went downtown and saw this trio called Interplay do a gig,
Yes. Did
which
you?
which was him
Lori Bell on flute,
and then a
and then
piano
Tommy
player.
Eros on percussion, maybe, or a piano player.
Just a piano player, and I'm pretty sure the piano player was blind.
You're right.
And I
Dave
don't
McKay. Dave McKay.
and I bought their CD. I still have their CD, and that was such a, it was one of these, I was just young, just kind of just starting to check out jazz. And it like blew me away. Like I didn't know who they were. I didn't know what they were doing. And then he started playing and doing his like full rhythmic bass chord thing at the same time. And then he scatted and sang his solo and harmonized with himself. And I was like, this is crazy. So maybe
Yeah.
you can talk about this record and that song, but also like
Yeah.
him a little in that scene.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
talk
So
about it.
I mentioned earlier the guy that I recorded uh, demos at
Oh, right.
was John Slavicek. Well, he had a band with Ron Satterfield, and it was called Checkfield. John
Right. I know them
Slavicek,
like on American Gramophone,
American
right?
Gramophone. Yeah, and
With
they were
Chip
kind of
Davis's label.
what
Yeah.
what's that? Sorry.
Chip Davis's label, I think, right? Or like
Exactly.
Fresh Air, all that stuff.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
And they had kind of this band in San Diego, and Ron Satterfield is this extremely gifted guitarist and singer. Sort of sings in like an Al Jarreau, or Kenny Rankin was one of his heroes,
Okay. Yeah.
and he has this comping thing on the guitar that yeah he prefers to not play with bass because he supplies the bass, and he does this thing where he kind of hits the bass notes with his thumb and does this interaction. So built in for swing it's good, but it's really great for kind of Latin
Mm.
feel. He just gets such a strong groove. And so he was in the whole scene, and he had this figure that he had sort of a a bag full of possibilities that he would throw in on tunes. Like he would reharmonize songs sort of in real time. But one of the
Yeah.
rhythmic things he had is this kind of 5/4 ring where he goes ba 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 ba. That's where he connects right there. So it's
Yeah.
five. It's five groups of five, and he always did it on a 2/5, like a G minor nine to a C7. Ba, ba, gun, 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 gun. And he made so that was one of his licks. So I stole it from my
Oh, that's
interlude
cool.
for my song Cantar, and I'm glad you read that because it's neat to think of him. And Ron was really in the scene for a while. Then he kind of had some health and sort of some
Yeah.
drug problem, alcohol problem, but
Okay. Yeah.
cleaned it all up. And him and I mean, sorry, Lori Bell are still playing. They don't call the band. They call it Trio de Jour. That's the
Okay.
name of their band, and they play around town, and they
Oh,
still
that's
sound
cool.
great.
He also has a record that got reissued, and it's a record with Jan Tober.
Yes,
And
kind of.
they must have had a recurring gig or something because it's like
They
a
did.
record. You can find it out there now. It's like this black and white cover. Um, I can't remember what it's called right now, but it's super cool. And they have I'm just gonna quickly look at something here because they have
Hmm.
it's like 70, it's so 70s San Diego.
Yes.
As long as there's music, it's called.
Neat.
And what game shall we play today? They have some, do you know these songs a little bit,
Well,
maybe?
that was a Chick Corea song. What
Oh
game
yeah. Okay, there we
that
go.
he
Because
wrote
it
with the lyric named Neville Potter wrote the lyric on that.
There you go. And it looks here like, yeah, they were a a duo, a run of residencies at Chuck's Steakhouse.
Yeah,
Okay.
because Josh, back in the day that was on that street, Prospect Street in La Jolla. There were like three or four every night of the week jazz clubs that he
Yeah.
played, and
I'm just gonna share this. You can check this out. This is Bandcamp, if you've ever checked
oh,
this.
neat.
And so this is just like
Yeah,
a digital release. But yeah,
that is so neat, man. Yeah, I'll have to check it because I have heard this at one point. I remember.
a 3-month gig aboard the Pacific Princess cruise liner in 1974. Wow.
I
Wild.
love it.
And then also his name, I mean, this is getting deep in the lore, but his name also showed up, maybe it showed up, and maybe the check field thing was connected to it, but like, is Network Music Library connected to these people?
Good. So Music, Network Music was a company that was based in San Diego that they did what they called needle drops. And
Yeah,
needle drops was like dropping the needle on a record. And so you could extract you could take a track from their library, use it for a commercial, pay far less than
yeah,
if you had a piece made just for that. And
right.
so there were a music library basically. And then John Slavicek also changed his name to John Archer. He was their resident recording guy, and
Got
he
it.
also did some writing. So he got me and Ron wrote some pieces. A bunch of jazz composers in San Diego would write pieces, and like they would do an album of Otmar Liebert, sort of
S-
flamenco
Style
nouveau.
music. So would
Yeah.
you kind of crank out like 5 pieces and go record
Yes.
them on a Sunday, like that type of thing?
Yes. And it was a great deal, and we still make
Yeah,
royalties from it. So
that's
it
cool.
was good.
Library music is like the hidden world production music because there's all these other libraries. I got deep into this at one point, like KPM music. Do you know some of these? There was one called Perry Music in Canada, but it's network. It's basically network music, but there were a lot of these companies around, and you're right, they could hire musicians to write sort of sound alike music and then
Yes.
license it out. Yeah.
And something that came out of it for me that was cool was that there would be pieces that so that the album would have a theme like Americana or blues jazz
Yeah,
or like
right.
that.
Right.
So having, and I don't know if you and I have talked about this before, but in composing, having some restrictions is kind of cool,
Oh
I
yeah.
think. Like,
Oh yeah.
okay, Josh, you're gonna now write for an album we're gonna come up next week. Want you to come and bring like a Joni Mitchell kind of tune
Right.
featuring flute or something like that. So you could do it. You know, we could all do it. And having those restrictions is kind of a cool thing because it's you know with the infinite possibilities you narrow it
Yeah.
down, and that's kind of a neat thing. But
Yeah.
what happened with me with the network stuff is a lot of times I'd write these songs and I'd say this is because when you write them you give them away, they're gonna now own
That's
them.
right.
So
That's right.
uh, on many occasions would write a song saying I'm not gonna give that one away, I'll write
I
another.
got to do another one. Yeah, yeah. This is funny. Yeah, I'll show you this real quick too. I did a version of this. I had a friend who worked for MTV and he was part of a production library company or he started his own. And so he'd ask me and some friends this when I lived in Seattle, like I need 10, you know, dramatic tracks by
Hmm.
Friday or whatever. So
Oh.
this is a record I put out last year of a lot of this stuff that didn't get used, but it
Oh, I love
but it's long,
Oh
it's
my gosh.
incredibly long.
What?
I think it's 208 songs, but basically it's chopped into 10 they're in order, and so the idea is there's 10 there's 10 dramatic orchestral songs, there's 10 country songs, there's 10 kids theme songs. Do you know what I mean? They're all
Yeah.
instrumental, and then all these are kind of like that library stuff. They're all either 30 seconds or a minute,
And why so short?
basically. Because I think most of the gigs, most of the stuff he was looking to place in these shows, that was kind of the, well, I'll tell you, really the story of this was I started doing this work that we're talking about, and then started to slowly realize that there's a fine line between trying to truly do, like, make a song that sounds as close to Coldplay as you possibly can, versus making something that you're aiming for Coldplay, but you miss the mark.
Yeah.
And what I started to realize as I did this, and a lot of these ended up circulating, and there's a little bit of royalty thing here and there, but it turned into just boot camp writing exercise for me. So I would write these
Love it.
left to center country songs.
Love it.
I wasn't good enough to really nail it, but I also realized over time I don't want to.
I know.
I
Yeah.
want to do my version of the country song, and I don't
Right.
want it to be mistaken for the bullseye because I don't
Yeah.
want that. I don't want that life. And I realized that as I got to know the production guy quite a bit, he wasn't expressing himself anymore. It was all, can you hit it just like this popular music right now? And it was like,
Right.
yeah,
Right.
that's a skill, but it's not for me, but anyway,
Yeah.
there's a
Yeah. And
beauty in
and for
it. Yeah.
and to follow your
Yeah.
creative ears and how, you know,
Yeah.
if you're gonna do it to be a bullseye, you couldn't use this cool chord that you came up with.
That's right. You're not allowed to. And I got notes back. I got notes back from these a couple production libraries, and this guy one time was really kind of, you know,
Mad.
yeah, he was just like, you can't do this many chords in this genre. You can't get all colorful here. Your intro was too long. And I think that was when I finally kind of lost interest because I was like, I know what you're saying, but I don't really want to put it in the I'm going to find another
I know.
thing.
Yeah.
So, but
Yeah.
it's a good boot camp. I think it's really cool if somebody's like, hey, in 3 days we need five acoustic, it's like boom,
It's so great. I think it's
yeah,
fantastic.
it's
Yeah.
good. Let's keep cruising along here. I got here's another thing I came across, which was this project called Manzanita.
Yep.
And there's a track I was able to hear on YouTube called like Bumblebee, which sounds kind of like a disco-y, George
I know.
Benson-y funk.
Yeah.
Was that sort of one of your first recording
Yeah.
things,
During
basically?
during that time when we made our first recording, which was called "You Make Me Want to Sing," at the same time going on the same part of the crew was this pianist from Del Mar. Um, did you ever know a gal named Tanya or Tanya Schneiderman? Does the Schneiderman name sound familiar at all?
Rings a bell, but yeah, I didn't
Okay.
know them.
Well,
Yeah,
okay. So a guy that was about a year before me, or after me, it's named Rob Schneiderman, and he was part of our early crew of musicians. He is a piano player. Um, he was part of our whole crew at that point in Del Mar, and he loved bebop, but he also loved funk, like Herbie Hancock, Headhunters, and
yeah,
like that. And then so he had this band, it was his band, and it was all his compositions, and he called the band Manzanita. And um, my brother was in it, but notably, Nathan East, who grew up in San Diego, was in it,
that's
and
right.
really contributed a lot to the band because talk about funk. I mean, that cat knows funk inside and out.
Did he leave? Did he kind of go to LA shortly after that, or was
Yeah,
he already up there? Or
yeah, and it was such an interesting, well, observation that we made. At least I made. But Nathan East, this cat's phenomenal player, great reader, but huge part of his, um, I believe, his huge part of his success is that as a human being, he was just a delight to be around. and he was super on the team, super enthusiastic, and that was I mean, and it wasn't as if we were all being moody and weird, but
But
that
he kind of rose even higher in a way,
yes,
yeah,
I
in
believe
that
because
realm. Yeah.
he went to LA and played with all these incredible people,
Mm.
and had such a career. And it's hugely, he's an incredible musician with a great time feel, but also just that whole thing of being a real delight to be
To be
around.
around. I'll tell
Yeah,
this to students quite a bit, like basically like, you take two scenarios. One person can play circles around everyone, but they're also they know it and they're the smartest person in the room and maybe they're not that fun to be with. Or the person who's pretty darn good, not the best, but good, but they're the best person to be around and everyone's energized. Like that's the person who will probably keep
it's so
working,
true.
right?
And also one thing about bass, Nate, yeah, he could take solos, but groove. He can groove and he's super happy to groove.
Yeah.
Like a lot of players were at that time were into Jocko and wanting to play a zillion notes
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and Nate just held it down. So yeah, so that
That's
was
cool.
really a great experience of doing that band. We did only one record, and he he he's still cooking that fellow Rob Schneiderman. He lives in Europe now, and he became a math PhD after not going to
Cool.
college. He was just playing jazz in New York City, living and doing that. At one point, he got interested in mathematics, just went at it with the same sort of attitude that he did with learning music, and became a PhD and has a teaching gig.
Jeez. Wow.
It's an amazing human being, that fellow, Rob Schneiderman.
Wow. That's cool. Yeah, I kind of was reflecting on that when I first got in touch with you to record some music, and it was probably a year or a year and a half into kind of recording a lot of music for me, starting maybe in 2023. I just started recording a lot around with people, mostly in LA, I guess. And
Hmm.
I kind of just decided to call you out of the blue. And what was interesting was when I came down to your studio, you go, I mean, you know this way more than me, but like you go into musical situations with new people and you want to be prepared and you also are, you're also a little worried because every time you go hang with someone you've never played with, there's a big, huge risk. Nothing's gonna work, basically,
Yes.
in a way. Like, I don't think that way really, but if you really think about it, it's like this could just not work.
Yeah.
Or if it does, it might happen, but then upon reflection, it didn't work,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
And I've gotten really interested in doing that a lot. Like kind of I like playing with the same people, but I also there's maybe a charge and an adrenaline to see what will come of this new chemistry. And
Hmm.
so as you're mentioning like Nathan East and stuff, I think when I first came to your place, we just did a duo session, if memory
Yeah.
serves, and this was
Yeah.
about maybe a year and a half ago. And yeah, it kind of hit me like I thought I was prepared really, and then I kind of realized like, oh, I could be way more prepared. And especially because I kind of brought charts that were a little half baked and whatever.
Hmm. Hmm.
And partially because I kind of like seeing what happens in the moment. I don't want to overcook it too much, or then the
Right.
spontaneity goes away.
Right.
But you really, I think what, just maybe working on the first project with you, it really hit me like your level of maybe like the bar where your bar is for like sort of an expectation to make sure everything is at least this good.
Hmm. Hmm.
That really had like a big effect on me, and I I felt myself trying to kind of like step up
Hmm.
to a certain
Hmm.
level while maintaining my cool so I could actually sing and play in a way that I want to hear later. Because I've recorded
Hmm.
before and I'm so wigged out that I don't want to hear it, like.
Hmm.
But that's just like I just thought I'd bring that up about that, at least that first recording. I'm um, that duo recording,
Hmm.
that was like a lesson I really took from that when it was just
Hmm.
I was just kind of working these tunes out with you that I kind of had this feeling like, oh, I need to clarify some things that I know I can, I just kind of haven't, and you kind of helped me just be like, boom, this is what I want
Yeah,
to be able to do, you know, whether it's real detailed chart stuff or whether it was
right.
just more of kind of a clarity. So I don't know, appreciate that.
Well, that's it's interesting, and yeah, something that I made a decision at some point. It was a long time ago, but it wasn't definitely in the beginning. But I just decided that the things that I was going to be involved with, I really wanted. So recording projects, um, even in my writing, music writing, but also I put out a weekly newsletter that sort of outlines what um, what I'm up to and what I'm kind of thinking about and gigs that are coming up. And I decided at one point, I ought to really do the stuff that I do it as good as I can. Um, not not half baked, like if I'm gonna do do a writing, I'm gonna try to get the grammar right. It's a
Mm.
hassle to capitalize letters, but do
Yeah,
that.
yeah, right.
Or if I'm gonna make a recording, like something that I've gotten into recently is we've done these live streams, and we're always doing kind of new music, and we're making mistakes, and I've really enjoyed going through the recordings and then correcting the mistakes, re-recording parts, and really making them as good as they can be. Um, and it's I'm happy that I've done that because it takes a little bit more work. And in your case, yeah, having, you know, I think a good way is to have the charts as to commit to in preparing the charts, commit to a way that it's going to go, and being open to changing things. But
Right.
but for you to fully commit
Yeah.
your idea, and because like yeah, as you kind of learn, like if you get have a really good chart spelled out clearly, it not only puts everyone at ease, but it also you get a lot more done.
Yeah. There's like
And
this efficient, like, yeah, there's this fine line. I think, yeah, I think the thing I find myself thinking about is sort of, there's so many styles of recording and ways of making music and, you know, levels of preparation and all this stuff. But I think you make a really good point that like you might as well come in really prepared.
yeah,
And then if the vibe is, you know what, let's just play the verse, the chorus, and an outro, and that's this miniature song, and that's what we're gonna do, then you can.
yes, yeah,
And I like that that sort of like at least get really prepared with with a version,
yes,
and you could throw it all away if inspiration strikes in the moment.
yes, yeah,
And that's I like that option.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Anyway, that's super inspiring. I want to talk to you about just a couple more of your records, and then maybe hit on that. I guess we did two. We've done three sessions total. Um, and so maybe I'll end our whole talk talking about a little bit of those. But
yeah,
if you're cool, if you're down, let's chat about a couple more of your projects, if that's okay.
absolutely, yeah, yeah.
Um, I got the sense that these two early records, Bird Raga and The Path, are basically just the same sessions, but split into two. Is that correct?
That's exactly right.
Okay.
Yeah. What happened was um let's see, Bird Braga and the Path. Well, the Path, no, actually it was the Path was its own session, I believe.
Okay.
Bird Braga and what was the other one? Oh, something in the wind.
Like a message in the wind or
Message in the Wind.
something.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that was a New York session that I did with Kenny Barron.
Oh, right.
And
Yeah.
then that there was enough for two or it's I'm not getting the details right, but yeah, one of those records was where we did a couple of sessions and used it on a couple of different records.
Okay, yeah. There's a track. I mean, that's such great stuff. I think this site, American, or no, sorry. Aquarium Drunkard did a little piece
Oh, yeah,
on
yeah,
one of those records a while ago.
yes.
What's really interesting to see are all these musical subcultures, right? Like that's kind of a corner of the internet where people are collecting vinyl and a lot of times they cover new music there, but they're definitely resurfacing music, and a lot of
Mhm.
the times it's sort of obscure or not super mainstream. Like they'll definitely do pieces on Neil Young and whatever, but they'll also just uncover these gems. And they did a piece on Bird Raga. But I think it's such a fascinating record, and I kind of pair it with that one, The Path, because it's like this cool, wild mix to me of like, on the one hand, there's a couple of songs on there that are just duo bass and
Yeah.
and guitar, kind of jazzy, standardy,
Hmm.
pretty straight up. And then there's these kind of like there's some chanting on one of the tracks and like some incredible
Yeah.
10-minute exploration. There's that Korean suite. But this
Yeah.
this track
Biarritz.
Biarritz, yeah, is sort of a standout because it feels like this foreshadow of your whole solo guitar thing that you've done. Like I used to watch you play at the Roxy a little bit.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and then you've got a great, what are some other solo, like plays solo and then Secret Chord? Is that another one maybe? You've
Secret
got a couple
Chord, and then
solo
there's
records.
one called Lucy in the Sky
Oh,
with
right.
Diamonds.
Oh, yeah.
That's all solo. Um,
Talk about your solo guitar
yeah.
thing.
God, that world. I'm not doing that world anymore because that world is so taxing on my hands and
Yeah.
my hands, my left index finger from so many bar chords and the fancy chords that we love. Like your
Yeah.
hands, I remember, are
Yeah.
huge. So you're ahead of it. But yeah, so the solo guitar thing, the first inspiration came from Joe Pass, believe it or not. Those solo guitar records he did, I devoured those. I think they were called Virtuoso or something.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I learned a bunch of moves from that. Heard him live. Got to play with him one time actually.
Well,
We played a duet concert. Um, and that is the ultimate style to play solo guitar because the orchestra is right there.
mm,
Um, and I love the freedom and I love the idea of rain. Well, then yes, that this was an interesting thing. What music to play when you're going to make a solo guitar record? Like
mm,
already, it's so obscure that it's just one person, and you have to get good at articulating the melody and then holding down the bass. And
yeah.
so from my experimentation at the Roxy playing solo, because I think I did that one night a week for months and years. Um, I think what I gathered that was working was a lot of times doing tunes that people knew that I would do my own versions of,
Yeah.
so that there would be a draw in and a connection with people that if it's a Beatles song or if it's Hallelujah, that it is a song that they know, and then it's coming out different because I'm using different chord changes and harmonization and stuff.
That's cool. Mm.
So that was one discovery that I made, and and it is just the hardest medium to do it
There's
because
no net.
there's
Yeah.
no net.
Yeah.
You've got to create groove. You've got to. It's sort of like being a magician where you're creating the sense that it's moving along in time. Like when you're playing all these lines, you're outlining the changes and you're keeping the time, and then you have to come connect back in with some chords, and it's something that I really miss because it was all involving, and I got to a point where, you know, I felt like when I had my band and we did all the right stuff, we had that sort of magic connection with the audience, and we really succeeded with this music moment where it really worked. And during the when I was in really great shape with my solo guitar playing, I felt confident that in doing that, same thing with just a solo guitar thing.
Wow. So you could
Which
hit
was
this, yeah, hit
yeah,
this kind of
where it was
flow state or just like
yes.
in it and it's just you.
Yeah, and that
That's
was
cool.
really rewarding and really cool. And I also explored, and that was really fun, is I explored um, using loopers and guitar synth.
That's
Um,
right. Is that on
yes,
just that final solo record?
it's on Secret
Or is it
Chord
on
too.
both? Okay, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that has some of that. The
Yeah.
first one didn't have any loops, I don't believe, but
That's right. Yeah,
the
yeah.
other two, the other two did, and that was. Have you played with loops?
I haven't. I mean, I've tried it, but I've never done it. I love the idea. Um, and I know I probably strayed away. There's so many people that are so good at it. I'm kind of like, it's your bag, you know. But
Yeah. Well,
yeah,
it's super fun when it works out, and it's also sort of dangerous,
it's
because
very dangerous. Matson too, actually. We haven't talked about them, but that was
they did
Jared
some
and
great.
Jonathan's thing, right? Where he had his double neck, and
He did
so he'd
bass, and
track the bass line, and then the bass player's there. Now he can play guitar, you know.
it was really cool.
That's cool.
But it's dangerous, yeah. Like because if while you're tracking your groove, if you have any lump in it, that lump's just going to come around every time.
That's right. That's
And
right.
but really really fun. So yeah, I am glad. And there's some dude in Germany, and he transcribed that whole first Peter Sprague plays solo, the
Oh
very
wow.
first one. Yeah,
Whoa.
he did, and I'm going to put it out as a book at some point. It's pretty accurate. It needs a little bit of editing, but he got everything. I mean, these are 10-page charts with all the improvisation, the head, and this guy has really great ears. And just so you know, something that had been a um, discovery for me was there's an app called Guitar Pro, and I don't know if you've ever seen it, but that's what this guy in Germany did to transcribe it, and it really um, I first looked at it, and what I first did is I exported it out of that into Finale, but then there was just a ton of cleanup to do. So then I
Got it.
started looking at the idea of doing within Guitar Pro. But basically, you have the staff there and you have this audio track right there, and you can kind of define where the bar lines are because none of it was played with click.
Oh,
And
right,
then so
right.
they move right in tandem and you can slow it down right there. So it's a
Whoa.
real easy way to notate, to transcribe basically.
Is he gonna is the book gonna be notation and tab?
Yes,
Oh, that's cool.
because the tab is easy.
It's just right there.
It's
Yeah.
right there. It's
There's a guy I came across on YouTube who does guitar lesson stuff, who must have studied with you, and he did a transcription of some solo you did with Peter Bernstein. Have you seen
Yeah.
this video?
Yeah, I didn't know that.
You
No,
should
but I
look this dude up. Why don't I'm gonna indulge me for a 20-second
yeah.
search. His name, um, I got it right here. So let's see. I'll share the screen too so folks can see.
Because I
Um,
remember that concert. I think we did two times concerts with Peter Bernstein,
hmm.
and I know some of that's up on the internet.
Check this out. This guy's a great teacher. So this guy.
Miko Hilden. Wow. And then is he playing?
So he transcribed, I mean, it's from a video of you two playing in a living room,
Yep.
and it's that tune, It Could Happen to You.
Yeah.
And but he talks about it's a 22-minute video. It's worth you
Wow.
should share it to your
How do I
list or whatever. I'll share. Why don't I share the link to you in the
okay.
chat here?
Okay.
Um, but it's cool, and he seems like maybe he was like at GIT in the 80s or somewhere, or
Okay.
MIT or something. So I don't know. Maybe he knew he knew of you th then or something. I'm not sure.
Super. Well, that'll be fun to check out. Neat. So that just got texted to me or
I just chatted you in the
oh, I see
Zoom
what it is.
here, but I can
Yes.
email it to you as well too. Yeah.
I see it.
Um,
Chat. Yeah.
but yeah, that whole world of solo guitar and the transcription thing and all of it is so fascinating to me as I kind of have morphed for me personally from I was like a card carrying jazz, tr sort of headed down the road of jazz. And now that's a bit in my rearview mirror as far as what I am aiming to do, whatever. But but I can still come to like the form and the tradition and the like the complexity of it and all these things with such an appreciation
Hmm.
that I was so stoked that we've been able to record, and
Yeah.
that I think the second project we did was with a band basically, right? So it was with
Hmm. Hmm.
my high school buddy Jason Powell, who's also a Chrysler Dodge dealer in Escondido, by the way.
Yeah, I remember that.
That's right.
Yeah.
And we
The
were and we were in a band. Yeah, we were in a band in high school, and we would also go see you play all the time. And then my friend Frank Lenz on drums, who I
hmm
think when we tracked this record, we were name dropping Carlos Vega a lot,
hmm
as sort of a North Star.
hmm
Frank's just got a great feel, and he's
hmm
kind of aware of a lot of. I feel like he's got good taste. That's another just word I've been thinking about lately with musicians. Like you can't really teach it,
hmm
and I
hmm
think someone has to learn it. And he's got that. And then the piano player's name is Dori Bavarsky, and he's got
Uh,
that. He's
yes.
he's a special musician.
Yes, yes. I remember that.
So
Very.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if you have any. I have some great feelings about that project. That was pretty fleshed out. I will say my first meeting with you doing that duo project, when I thought to come back and make another thing with you at your studio there, I thought I need to be a little more prepared, and like it's going to be bigger, but I need my chart. And I think my charts were a little bit better.
Very much improved. Yeah.
And so I kind of felt like I was like, coming back from my second semester or something as a student or something.
Uh-huh.
But I was really just kind of pleased with how the record came out. I also used this great woodwind player named Tristan Capel, who's in LA. So flutes got put on the record after the fact.
Hmm. Hmm.
But and we videoed it all. So all this is coming out down the road here. So all those
Okay.
songs are videoed with your whole incredible
Set up there.
setup you have wired. But I wonder if you have any you do so many sessions, but if you have any perspectives or memories on
Yeah.
those
Now I
tunes or those
have
sessions we did.
thing that I thought of was when you're talking about your path of starting in sort of a jazz way, but then going into other things. I sure hope that you feel good about your direction because I think your direction is very creative and very its own thing and unique and
That's cool to hear.
and really I really just love the things that you come up with and they're fresh and they have, as you mentioned, they do have jazz elements to it. They have folk elements. Um, yeah. So I just um, remember, yes, the second session with the band, very impressed with everybody, and also your level of preparedness was, I did notice that for sure.
Well,
And
that's
and
cool to hear.
yeah, and I thought they went smooth. I'm curious. Also, I wondered if you did much repair work of stuff.
Mm. When we mixed, so yeah, I mixed with my friend at a studio in LA called Altamira Sound, and his name's Jamie Rioto. And I added background vocals. Dory put some synth on some songs, on quite a few songs actually. Um, I don't think I overdubbed any guitar stuff.
Hmm.
And I think, you know what I think I've gotten in the habit of doing is also just arranging when it becomes time to mix. Meaning I probably muted my acoustic on verse two
Okay.
of a song, and we might have muted I think we muted the bass on the pre-chorus to X song, and muted the drums on an outro, and then brought them in, like a lot
Okay.
of that.
Okay.
And that's kind of what we were talking about. Like I think if you come in real prepared with some pretty straight, explicit charts, one of the beauties of the way I've been making records, which is, you record it all and then mixing is a whole different thing.
Hmm.
My thought has always been like, yeah, if you can just edit it and mix and mute the drums on verse two, because that's what you want to hear, mute them. And if it sounds great, that's the
Oh,
drum part.
right.
The drummer never played on verse two. And you can make it sound like that. And that's for me, that's just part of the composition process. Like I don't need to tie myself to my original thought on a song, right? Like
Right.
I
Right.
that's a beautiful that is a beautiful outcome of working digitally and all that stuff. And
Hmm, hmm.
you can edit super well. But yeah, I don't think there was much cleanup as much as if anything there was stripping away
Okay.
during the mixing process and then like yeah, refinement more than
Hmm.
cleanup or like not much redoing, I would say.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
frankly, I'll say this too, and I kind of like this concept. Like there, I might have played something less than stellar on whatever portion of whatever song, or maybe the bass had this on. I'm 100% fine with that's why, and that is why there's no acoustic on the second verse. Not only does it sound great to strip down and produce it that way and have it
Got it.
open up to hear the lyrics in a new fashion with a new perspective, but the guitar wasn't helping, so
Yeah.
kill two birds. So that's kind of
That's great.
a fun way to think of music to me is like you're not really done writing until you print your final mix if you want to look at it like that.
Yeah.
You can always do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah,
I
yeah,
for some reason have done that kind of stuff as well, but for some reason I got into all these interesting ways of fixing things.
yeah.
Okay, so the piano, if there's a piano thing that they didn't quite get the line, I've got this piano. I'll even at that moment take out the real piano and add and do a fixed piano
Oh wow, yeah,
with a really good sample piano that I have. And and yeah, I kind of I guess maybe what it is I go into pretty detailed land of when I create a demo for a song and when I create an arrangement. And I'm always
yeah,
open to people changing, but I a lot there are certain things that I just definitely want to hear
yeah.
and sometimes they don't get pulled off. So I'll go and repairing guitar is easy. Repairing piano, I found a way to do it. Repairing bass is pretty easy because I have a great bass sample.
Yeah, you can do it now. Okay, so here is one other memory I quickly have about this session. If memory serves, the second day of our session, your monitors might have been on while you were
Yes,
tracking with your condensers. So
that's
didn't you
right.
have to go back and essentially re-record your parts for half the record?
I did.
Okay. That kind of blew me away when I saw your email. I was like, "Oh my gosh." But then I was struck in every session we've done at your speed of repair or comping. Like you're really quick at comping solos,
Yeah.
and or fleshing out lines and stuff like that. Which again, I think there's just we're living in a time where there's kind of a beauty for me on all spectrums, right? If you're hearing the thing in your head and you want it realized, you can do it.
I know.
If you change course and you just want to axe it and it's for the better, you can do it. There's so many ways. There are so many ways to do it, right?
Yeah, it's an incredible time to be alive. I mean, I love the marriage of tech and then just
Sure.
soul. I just love
Yeah.
that. Just one quick question. I wondered, have you explored any of the AI elements at all?
Well, yeah, so nothing like super new, like what's it called? Suno, I think.
Suno, yeah.
Yeah, I haven't gone there. I mean, I think probably the most use of which I'll call it AI is like the Logic Drummer, which are you pretty aware of how that works?
No, tell me.
I mean, and it's again, it's nothing like these prompt software where you can type in the name of a band. That's not what it is, but they have done a really good job with that it's just a drum machine. But funny story, I used to tour in Europe quite a bit and in Germany, I knew some folks who were on the engineering side, and they were even working for like eMagic back in the day, which was early Logic, I think. And
Hmm. Hmm.
they were out in LA. I just saw them at a restaurant one night, and I was like, "What are you doing here?" You know, and they were standing with Matt Chamberlain, who's like one of the top studio drummers alive, basically, has recorded with he's been on some Frizzell albums, but he's also recorded with big people like Fiona Apple and all kinds of big names. Anyway, he was in the studio with them all day, setting up his $1 trillion vintage drums and hitting each tom this hard, this hard, this hard, this hard, this, you know what I mean? Getting velocity so that you can go home and play it on your MIDI controller with every velocity you'd ever want. So anyway, what the Logic drummer has is this fun little XY pad where what is it? You know, it's soft, loud, simple, complex, and it's an
Love it.
XY drag.
Yeah.
And every little point on the grid is perfect. And then the kicker is this in the timeline before I write a note before I program a note of a drum machine, I can pick the drums I want, right? So are they going to be new Tamas or old Slingerlands or blah 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 blah, right? I can dampen the kick. I can do everything you can imagine. But then in this arrangement window in Logic, you can write, 8-bar intro, 8-bar verse, 4-bar pre-chorus. You map out your whole song,
Whoa.
and then you just say create regions, and it makes the drum parts for
Oh.
every region. And it's stylistically appropriate because you've chosen the drummer that is connected to pop rock, but you could get rid of that drummer and choose the jazz drummer, and then they would play a stylistically appropriate jazz intro.
Hmm. And they were doing cymbal fills to the bridge
They're
and
doing everything you ever would want. And then you can go to the kit itself and mute a drum. So what if you wanted the whole entire, you love the part they're playing on the verse, but you don't want them to play it on the ride? Well, you just mute the ride and highlight the hi-hat. It's
yeah.
super intuitive.
Uh-huh.
And that is I think that's probably I'm not the AI expert, but there's a version of that resonates with these tools.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess my hot take on that world is I was just listening to an interview with someone about it this morning, and I think at the end of the day, these are all tools that, to your point, I don't think they're necessarily going to take the work out of anything because I think what it now has become on some of these things is all about the clarity of your prompts you're writing in for it to write the song of your dreams. And then for me, the dark side for me mostly, and I don't know if it's dark, it's actually probably not dark, it's more just puts a choice out there for human beings and it's simple. And I say this to students, it's like, do you want to develop the skills to do this out of your brain and with your experience listening to music? Or do you want to defer to a system that is calling from years of human thought? Um, and do you want it to write the perfect guitar part for your chorus?
Right.
Or do you want to see if you can drum that up from your head?
Yeah.
I know where
Yeah.
I stand, but
Yeah.
no judgment on people that want to come to music and build it that way. It's
Yeah.
just not for me. What about you? What about you? Have you used these
Well,
tools
yeah,
and do you
I
think about it?
have. And
Yeah.
I'm fascinated by some of it and I um think like I've used Suno before to
Yeah.
nothing that I put out yet that but what it has done that has been interesting is it kind of sets up sometimes a start to a tune or a solution to one section or a suggestion of where it might go.
Right.
I've noticed that, and that's been interesting. I've had a couple of songs that it wrote a lyric and I like parts of the lyric and I would use them and
Yeah.
yeah, so
Yeah.
some of that. And then one thing that I've been using that I think is very helpful for me, and it's nothing that's made its way to a final project, but there's a company called Dream Tonics, and they make a synthesis. It's called Synthesizer V, and it's a plugin. But basically, what it is you feed it a MIDI file of a melody, say, and it would then transform that MIDI file into a vocal track, and it defaults to la as the
Got it.
but in it you can type in lyrics and and then control many parameters, and it sounds really neat
Yeah.
to at least get a sense is your lyric working that you're doing.
Yeah, it's almost like a demo. It's like a
Yeah,
session singer, right?
and
It's
it's
just like as if you were in LA and you hired a day with a session singer to
to
get a
sing
sense of
so you
what
get a sense of what's working. That lyric sounds odd every
it's
time that comes
incredible.
around.
Yeah,
Also, a good way to teach a real vocalist with the song.
that's right.
You
So
know
that's
that
your
this
demo. Yeah,
yes that so I've had a lot of fun with
that's
that,
cool. That's
and
cool.
it's pretty amazing. So yeah, I'm kind of um, I think it's going to be a disaster too. I do, but
Yeah, it's a little bit of both, right? It
yeah,
feels like, but there are all these always these changes in technology where it's kind of
yeah,
like everyone hems and haws about the thing and it's coming and it's already here for that matter. So I think it just kind of shifts the needle and there's going to be people that are super bitter. There's going to be early adopters. I definitely don't want to pretend I don't want to pretend it doesn't exist or anything, but I've found in recent years I've gotten more excited about making music really than ever before in my life, just on a very base level. And I think part of it, all of it, has been based on just digging in and putting more time into my craft. And for me, that's usually strumming a guitar, playing a piano, and writing words and coming up with melodies and chords. And I kind of have no interest in
I know. Having somebody else
I
do
have
it.
no interest in changing that, if
Yeah,
that makes sense. Like
I do.
I just want to keep going right down that hole. And if I run out of ideas, I could type a prompt in and see what it could do for me. But I like the idea of kind of just
Yeah,
the self-contained. Back to the beginning of our conversation, it's kind of like Matheny sounds like Matheny, right? Or whatever. It's like I think that's this thing, the
yeah.
ideal for
Well,
me
and isn't
that
that the
I'm
fun
thinking.
part about it? Is like for you and I when to sit and come up with a new song
Yeah,
and come up with a melody and where the chord's going to go. That's
that's the joy. Yeah.
and over the years I've grown to use synthesizers for my width of the world. I used those sample libraries.
Yeah.
I'm sort of for sure going to be open to these new tools.
Mm.
But like one, it's interesting. A friend of mine uses Suno and makes songs and sends them to me, and it's unbelievable how good it is in
Yeah.
some ways. The
Yeah.
production is
It's
fantastic. I mean,
insane. Yeah.
like all the details are correct. A breakdown, less
Insane.
reverb here, more
That's
reverb.
right. That's
Like,
right.
but then there's these awkward things that it
Right.
does.
Right.
And it's so funny because
Right.
I don't know if you've tried it, but when with Suno, like it gets a lot right. But I want to change this one thing. Every time you render that thing, it's a different song.
Oh, right.
You
Yeah. It
can't
won't
really go back and manipulate.
and fix it.
Uh,
But I feel like that's pretty that'll be fixable soon,
it
right?
will.
Like if you're 90% there, I'm sure soon you'll just be able to pause where it is, get in, fix the thing, and then get it to 100, which is cool. Yeah. Yeah,
Oh,
man. Well, what a pleasure to chat. I really appreciate
oh,
it. It's super
yeah,
fun.
yeah. Well, you're just such a great guy. I'm really happy to know you and really happy to hear about your music.